Hello and welcome to another edition of Let's Talk About It. This week, we're sitting down one-on-one with Congressman Bruce Westerman for a wide-ranging conversation on some of the issues affecting Arkansans and the nation. Among the topics we'll discuss are the Great American Outdoors Act 250 legislation, challenges facing farmers and ranchers, rural hospital closures and healthcare access, infrastructure needs tied to rapid growth, water demand and conservation, and the role of data centers in Arkansas communities. We'll also talk about active forest management and wildfire risk, the SPEED Act, the MOVE Act, and what Arkansans can expect when Congress returns to Washington. Here's my conversation with Congressman Bruce Westerman. I wanted to touch on the Great American Outdoors Act 250 because that's the last time that I found you in Hot Springs. So you introduced this bipartisan legislation. Where does that kind of stand today?
It's still a work in progress, and it's getting closer to the finish line, but nothing's easy in Congress. The president actually wanted to sign this by July the 4th, and we were tracking down that pathway, ran into a few hiccups in the Senate, but we're regrouping, and hopefully we're going to get this passed because it's very important to, I think most all Americans appreciate the fact that we have the greatest national parks. We have these wonderful public lands. I know you were at the hearing in Hot Springs. You saw Kevin Costner talk about how great our parks and lands are. And I think he was speaking on behalf of a lot of Americans that really want to see this done so that we can take care of these incredible resources that we have.
How will it directly affect places here in Arkansas?
So the funding is not just for the National Park Service, it's also for the U.S. Forest Service and U.S. Fish and Wildlife. It also covers the BLM. We don't have too many Bureau of Land Management lands in Arkansas, but you'll see maintenance on facilities in Hot Springs National Park, on the Buffalo National River, on the many fish and wildlife refuges that we've got, and on the Ozark St. Francis and the Ouachita National Forest. It goes mainly for maintenance backlog. I'm working on some provisions in there to allow some additional work to be done that enhances visitor experiences.
Kind of sticking with the subject of the outdoors, Arkansas farmers continue facing a lot of uncertainty with input costs. We've got weather extremes, we've got market pressures. What are you hearing from producers right now, and what's the resolution?
So agriculture's tough in Arkansas right now. I mean, if you look at the data, I think it was 40,000 acres less of rice that were planted this year. A lot of that has to do with competition in the marketplace. It has to do with the high input cost. You're kind of getting a perfect storm, and this isn't the first year for this. This is multiple years of having these problems. You know, last year we had bumper crops, which actually hurt because it put more into the market and drove prices down even further. So there's a lot of grain still in bins. We've passed the farm bill out of the House. We had language in the reconciliation bill last summer to help farmers out. Some of that's kicking in now, but we really need to get the farm bill passed, and it's over in the Senate. Senator Bozeman's doing a tremendous job leading on that. We're fortunate to have him in Arkansas leading on the farm bill. It's just tough to get stuff through the Senate right now.
A recent report suggested that Arkansas is among the states most vulnerable when it comes to rural hospital closures. How concerned are you about the future of rural health care, and what really needs to happen to ensure that those smaller communities continue to access care that's close to home?
So this is a big issue. The 4th District, where I represent, has a lot of rural hospitals in it, a lot of rural areas in it. And we're seeing those hospitals closing or being bought. If you look back at the reconciliation bill we did, we put $50 billion out for something called the Rural Healthcare Transformation Fund. And it wasn't based on state population, it was based on rural areas. So, you know, Arkansas got as much as within a small amount of every state. So Texas didn't get a lot more money than Arkansas got. California didn't get a lot more money than Arkansas got. So we've got a couple $100 million that will renew in years going forward. It's a real opportunity to transform the way we deliver healthcare services, because the model that we got is not necessarily working right now. We need to work to get these hospitals in good shape so that they can remain there and provide services. It may not be the full suite of services, but it may be eventually more of a kind of a hub and spoke model. We've also got an issue with getting healthcare providers into rural America. If you had all the funding and everything else you needed, there's a shortage of doctors and nurses. So I'm very impressed with what Alice Walton is doing with the new medical school and how she's taking a focus on rural areas. This really is, I think, what she's working on is part of rural healthcare transformation. People get sick in rural areas and they need medical services, and telehealth can play an important part of that, which we've pushed for more of that. Also, something that you may not realize if you're not from a rural area, but emergency medical services are extremely important. So getting paramedics more involved. Oftentimes when they go pick someone up, it's a long ways to any hospital. So maybe looking at ways to get telehealth onto ambulances so you can get more expertise medical care to the paramedics who are out, on the front lines doing the job. So a lot of things are in the work to address rural healthcare, and the big healthcare transformation, rural healthcare transformation funding that we put out, I think is going to be a positive step in that area.
Two extremes, right? We go from the rural side of things to rapid growth. I know here in especially Northwest Arkansas, we're feeling what I like to call the growing pains. Communities across Arkansas are growing. What federal investments or policies are most important to make sure that infrastructure keeps pace with the growth?
Highway transportation bill, that's always important. But there's also the FAA bill for airlines. We also have the Water Resources Development Act for navigable waterways. The Arkansas River is a major navigable waterway that helps us to ship products at a much lower cost with a much less energy footprint, and people just take that for granted. So we got to make sure we've got the funding and the plans in place for good infrastructure. Something I've been working on along with a lot of members on both sides of the aisle is permitting reform. It takes forever to build something in our country anymore, and the cost goes through the roof. America was built by innovators and people that had dreams and ideas, and a lot of that's getting squelched because it takes so long to get a permit. You can spend an average of 4.5 years to get something called a NEPA permit, a record of decision. Then there's a 6-year period where that can be challenged in court. A judge can issue an injunction and stop a project. That's hurting us on transportation. That's a safety issue when we can't spend the money to build roads and bridges as quickly as we need to. And that's based on data from the Department of Transportation. It plays into energy development, really impacts all parts of our life, even forest management, which is something that's very important to me. So there is a bipartisan effort to streamline the regulatory process, to make permitting less cumbersome, not to remove the benefits of permitting, because we care about the environment. We want to see a healthy, safe environment, but we can have that and we can have a strong economy at the same time. So permitting reform, infrastructure, that's all going to be very important to growth. And also, I think quality of life is a big thing. That gets back to our parks and our public lands. There was a recent coalition started in Congress called the Gulf States Coalition. We have a Gulf States caucus that they picked me to be the chairman of that. And it's Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Arkansas, and Alabama. So we're not on the Gulf, but for some reason they wanted Arkansas in. And I think it's because Arkansas has so much to offer to the region. But if you look at those states, there's an in-migration. People are moving to these states. We have a lot of resources. AI is a big discussion point. So I was giving a speech to this group and I just asked AI, what's special about these 5 states? And it said, these states are the energy and mineral backbone of America. And if you think about it, they really are. Look at South Arkansas with the lithium deposits. Billions of dollars worth of lithium in the ground in brine water in South Arkansas. But the real economic impact is when you take that out and process it, and it has a multiplier effect of like 6 or 7 on the economics. Then when it goes into manufacturing, it's another 3 to 4 times multiplier effect on the economic impact. So there's potential for tremendous growth by using our resources here. We got incredible farmland, incredible timberland, and really when you look at that 5-state region, you see a lot of the same things. A lot of oil and gas in Texas and even in Arkansas with new ways to recover that oil and gas out of the Smackover Formation.
Where do we stand on the SPEED Act?
That was the permitting bill I was talking about. That is the permitting reform. We call it the SPEED Act, Standardizing Permitting, Enhancing Economic Development. It's over in the Senate, along with a lot of other bills. It's in the Senate EPW committee, which Shelley Capito from West Virginia is the chairman of that committee. She's working very hard. We work closely with them. I have Democrats tell me all the time, we have to do permitting reform. Republicans are saying we have to do permitting reform. You would think we could get permitting reform done. We formed a coalition when we put the SPEED Act together. We had over 400 organizations supporting the SPEED Act from all 50 states and some of the territories. So this is something, again, affects people far and wide, and Americans want to see a change so that we can build things, so that we can make things more affordable, and we can experience the benefits of building here in our country, both the economic, and in a lot of cases, it's a national security issue when it comes to developing AI and data centers.
What's your take on the MOVE Act?
If you bought a home and interest rates were at 2%, like nobody wants to get out of that mortgage. So what it does is it allows you to transfer that mortgage to a new home purchase. So you're moving your mortgage from the home you're in to another. Housing is one of those issues that I think young people especially are feeling the pinch on that. You know, the housing, there's a short supply of housing, and that means the prices are high. People are forced to rent. Oftentimes the rent they're paying is more than a mortgage payment would be, but they can't save enough money to make the down payment. This is a story I hear repeated over and over. This bill, it was multiple bills in the housing bill that was put together and passed, I think can make a big difference. You know, one of the things I heard Representative Hill telling the story just the other day, he worked as an intern in the Senate in the 1980s, and Ronald Reagan had this idea on using more modular housing. French said 40 years later we passed a bill that implemented one of Reagan's ideas, and it had to do with the metal carriage underneath manufactured housing. The law states for it to be modular homes, you had to have this carriage, which prevented you from, you know, building stuff in a factory and moving it on site and putting it together more in modular homes. So we fixed that after 40 years. And it's little things like that, it's financing, it's help with down payments that I think are going to help bring the housing market back.
Data centers.
Yeah.
A big topic right now, becoming a bigger part of the conversation here in Arkansas. Communities weighing in on the economic benefits against, of course, the concerns about things like power, water, infrastructure, demands, all of that. What do you think is the right balance? How do we strike that?
I think we've got to be very smart about data centers. Data centers are going to be here. AI is going to be here. We're actually in a bit of a Cold War with China on AI, so it's a matter of national security. So the federal government will be investing in AI. The federal government is investing in AI. A lot of companies are investing in AI. To be honest, when I first started really delving into AI, I thought, you know, maybe this is something the world could have done without, but the cat's out of the bag. AI is going to be developed. It's going to have some very positive, good uses, but it could also be used for some very bad things as well. You can't have AI without a data center. That's where the AI is housed. And we hear stories about these hyperscale data centers now that are massive, large data centers. Probably people's first connection to a data center that their mental connection, not with their smartphones, because we connect with data centers every single day, was the Bitcoin and the data mining. And those aren't the kind of data centers we're talking about. These were usually built very rapidly, as low cost as possible. They had problems using too much water. They created a lot of noise. You know, they might put in diesel generators instead of connecting to the grid. These new data centers are massive. They recycle the water. A huge data center won't use any more water than a golf course. I've heard it described as what 4 or 5 homes would use, because they're not using the water and releasing it and getting more water. They're recycling it. You have to have a little bit of makeup water. But the water issue I don't think is going to be an issue. The amount of energy these things use is unbelievable. Like, you hear projects announced that are in gigawatts. And to put that in perspective, the nuclear power plants in Russellville, they produce a gigawatt. So if you hear a data center that needs 3 gigawatts, think about 3 nuclear reactors for 1 data center. They use an enormous amount of electricity, enormous amount of energy. There's a way, because these data centers are big, consistent loads, if it's done smartly, you can actually use a data center to lower the cost for residential, commercial, and industrial consumers, because when you put the big load on the grid, you're making all your generating equipment run much more efficiently, which drives the unit cost down. The key is to have great contracts, solid contracts, so that if something happens down the road and a data company says, we don't need this technology anymore, you can't let them off the hook for paying for that added generation equipment. You don't want to add too much generation equipment. You actually want these data centers connected to the grid, not just have their own energy generation behind the grid, so that the communities can benefit from it. The other benefit is these are massive investments. If you go to communities that have these newer, bigger data centers, people seem to be very happy about it. Now, you're always going to have people that don't like it, but you're going to have a lot of people that you find like it.
Communities here in KNWA, when we talk about growth, already discussing the future of, water demand and water conservation. Mm-hmm. What role do you see the federal government playing in helping fast-growing regions prepare for those future needs?
Fortunately, we had people that came before us that had the great ideas of making, like Beaver Lake, where I live in Hot Springs, Lake Ouachita. The city of Hot Springs just got water out of Lake Ouachita and built a new water treatment facility. I think it can provide up to 28 million gallons per day. Those lakes weren't necessarily built for water supply, but they were built for multi-purpose flood control, for electrical generation. But I'm already getting visitors from Northwest Arkansas talking about the Beaver Lake water supply. It's something you have to work through with the Corps of Engineers. Sometimes it takes a long time to get this done, but there are people every day looking at how they're going to meet the needs of a growing Northwest Arkansas. Other parts of the state are experiencing the same thing. Arkansas is super blessed with water. The committee that I chair deals with Western water, and there's just not any more water. Like, you go in the Colorado River Basin, there's just not any more water. If there's a year where there's not a lot of snowfall, the lakes don't fill up. Lake Mead, Lake Powell, they're all at record lows. There is some more water in California that could be diverted, but when you get on the east side of the mountains in the Colorado River Basin, they simply don't have the water. We are blessed with an abundance of water. We need to be much better stewards of our water, because it can be a very valuable resource going forward. It's so important for agriculture and for a growing state.
You've spent your career advocating for active forest management. What steps should be taken right now to reduce wildfire risks and then improve the health of Arkansas's forests?
So the Fix Our Forest Act is the bill. We were just talking about water. Water and forestry go hand in hand, and a lot of people don't realize this. If you have a healthy forest, and Teddy Roosevelt way back when said, trees are the lungs of the earth. They breathe in carbon dioxide, they breathe out oxygen. So everybody that learned about photosynthesis in junior high science understands the benefit to air quality for having healthy forests. Well, forests also serve as the kidneys of the earth. They regulate the amount of water that gets into the water table. They help hold water in, they hold soil in place. I was just out in Beaver, Utah. They had a 100,000 acre wildfire in a canyon. This canyon had a river or a creek in it that supplied hydropower and water to the city. Well, 3 weeks after the fire, they had just an inch to an inch and a half rain, something we wouldn't really think twice about here, something that would have normally been welcome there. It washed so much soil and debris into the drainage that it took out their 3 hydropower stations. It took out bridges. It washed mud into the town and did lots and lots of damage because that vegetation wasn't there anymore. So forests are extremely important for water quality. When we look at Arkansas, we do a pretty good job of managing our forest. What we need are better markets for our forest products. A startling statistic is that the United States is the #1 importer of wood and paper products. At the same time we're importing wood and paper products, we're closing down mills. We're closing down paper mills, we're closing down sawmills, both hardwood and softwood sawmills. And it's not because we don't have the resource. It's because we got to get the market side of it correct. China dumps paper into our markets. China and Vietnam buy U.S. hardwood logs and ships them overseas and saws them up and sends us the lumber, the finished goods back. We buy a tremendous amount of lumber from Canada and from Europe. We've got to get our trade policies in place so that we can actually have markets so that we can manage our forests. And there's tremendous opportunity in Arkansas with the large forest products industry that we have. We grow about 44 million tons of new trees every year. That's what the Arkansas Forestry Association says. We harvest in a good year 20 million tons. So even with all the harvest we're doing, the forests in the state of Arkansas are increasing 20 to 30 million tons per year. And at some point, trees get too crowded and they quit growing. So we could supply a lot more markets if we had the infrastructure and the trade policies in place to make that happen.
When Congress returns, what issues will be top of your agenda that directly affect Arkansans?
Issues that we've actually passed out of the House. We talked about the SPEED Act. I'll be talking to senators a lot. When are we going to get the SPEED Act done? When are we going to get the Fix Our Forest Act done? When are we going to get the Farm Bill done? And when are we going to get the Surface Transportation Bill, which we still need to pass it out of the House. We've passed it out of the committee. And we've also got the Water Resources Development Act. A lot of bills that we've passed out of the House that are over in the Senate. We need to work with our Senate partners to get those passed. Fortunately, we passed a bill to fund the government through December. So there will not be a government shutdown at the end of September like there has been many years in the past. And that'll give us time to focus more. We've also got to get our National Defense Authorization Act passed out of the Senate. We passed that out of the House as well.
We end our episode with a tribute to the Queen of Country. A Northwest Arkansas woman is holding on to what has become a bittersweet memory, creating a cake of many colors for Dolly Parton on her 80th birthday, what turned out to be her last.
Wow! And that is all cake?
It's all cake.
Butterflies in Hannah Ryder's stomach melted away like butter.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Isn't that crazy?
Are these like,
They're chocolate.
are you kidding me?
As the Queen of Country treated her like royalty.
She allowed me to come and spend and share her 80th birthday with her.
A tribute crafted for a woman Hannah says was even sweeter than the cake.
Dolly just has such a big heart.
She designed every detail with gratitude and deep respect for Dolly Parton's legacy. Hannah called it a cake of many colors for a woman who, in her words, shined in every way.
My nerves were through the roof, but as soon as she walked through the door, she just had like this peace about her and this light.
She lit up the room. A firecracker.
I had people say, telling me to back off, like, Dolly, don't eat the microphone.
Warm, kind.
We gotta get pictures up close to that.
And remarkably humble for someone who changed the world.
She just made you feel like she's known you for your whole life.
Intentional with every moment, present with every person.
She sat down, she told stories, and wanted everyone to feel special.
A global icon who somehow still felt like home.
She said that every morning she wakes up with a newer, bigger dream.
Dreams as big as her hair was high.
She felt like family. She went from rags to riches, and she didn't only do that, but she lived that out, and she kept her roots a part of her story.
No matter how bright the spotlight grew, it never outshone the light within her.
If Dolly has taught us anything, it's, put God first and always make sure that, you're loving people big and you're giving back to communities and you're trying to do better in this world. That was her biggest thing was, being a light to people.
And for every life she touched, that light still shines. Thanks for joining us for Let's Talk About It. If there's a conversation you'd like us to have or a topic you'd like us to explore, email me at abrothers@knwa.com. Until next time, be safe, healthy, happy, and have a wonderful week.